Hello, everyone. A warm welcome to the session today. We are going to talk about a perfect action plan that will get you to a 705 in the first attempt. So, as always at GMATWhiz, we believe in bringing you amazing insights into the GMAT to help you understand how can you give your 100% in your first attempt on the GMAT or any attempt that you're taking and make sure that you get to your target score. So today we are going to focus on the study plan. So if you have just started your preparation, you are at the right place. Stay tuned with us till the end of the session. You're going to get some really great insights and understand exactly how should you map out every single week of yours for the GMAT. So it's going to be a very detailed, very focused session, and I welcome all of you to the session. So yes, if you have any questions, I want this to be very interactive. There are going to be mind-boggling questions, facts that you will see during the session. So if you have any follow-up questions on them, don't worry about them. Just put it in the chat here. I'm more than happy to take them up at any point of time, guys. Okay. Those of you who don't know me, I'm Piyush Beriwala. I'm the co-host today, and I'm one of the founders of GMATWhiz. I have close to about 11 years of experience helping students get into top tier MBA programs globally. So it was 11 years ago when I first helped someone to get into Stanford. And that has been a long journey since then. I've been helping people in different capacities as a teacher, as a consultant with their applications, as a mentor in many cases to crack top B schools across the globe. Personally, I have been a student and a teacher both. I have prepared for GMAT as well as CAT. I've scored a 740 on GMAT and a 99 percentile on CAT. And I like analyzing data to come up with. I've written here game-changing strategies because I love coming up and understanding how the test functions. I strongly believe that if you don't understand the test, you can't really strategize for it. And having the right strategy in place is a very big game changer for anyone. So that's what I love doing, and I'll share some of those strategies with you today, which have worked for me, which have worked for my students as well. So let's start with the first thing. So instead of me telling you basically what should be your study plan, let me first quiz you guys, because I personally feel that you cannot really prepare for a test unless you understand the test. So it is very, very important for you to know what GMAT really is. And uh, to my disbelief, I see a lot of people who have been prepping for GMAT for a year and a half, not understanding even some very important elements, because of which their preparation is just derailed from the right track, because they don't even know how GMAT really, like the basics of it, they obviously know. But some important test taking strategies they're not aware of, because of which they end up uh, studying extra or wasting a lot of time and energy. So let's start with that understanding. Let me quiz you guys on some things about the GMAT. Let's see who all gets this right. So I'm going to share data, raw score of GMAT for the three sections: Quant, Verbal, and DI. So Quant 70, DI 79, Verbal 81, Quant 81. I want you to tell me which section is the weakest. If a student scores this score in the three sections, which section of the student is the weakest? Is DI the weakest? Is Verbal the weakest? Is Quant the weakest? What do you guys think? I would like to hear from you in the chat here. Let's see your responses, guys. Hi, Santosh. Happy to hear from you. Okay, I see. Again, I'm pronouncing your name wrong. So Tabo Mahe saying Quant, Jitu saying Quant, Anitha also saying Quant, Santosh says Verbal, Sripati, Sanchita, Sumit. All of you are going for Quant, right? Okay, I have a new answer. Pranjal says it depends. It doesn't depend. I'm talking about what is the weakest in terms of percentile. See, if you look at the score, most people look at the score. Again, many of you thought that this is a trick question, right? It is a trick question. You can't say DI, right? If you look at the raw score, DI looks the lowest. But when you are looking at weakest or like strongest, you have to understand and you have to mark based on percentiles. Like percentile is the real metric, because it tells you where you stand in terms of 100 students who are taking the test. So if you look at the percentile of all the three sections, you will realize that it is actually verbal that is the lowest. It's not quant, right? Most of you thought it is quant. Basically, quant is not the lowest. Verbal is lowest score, weakest section in terms of percentile. What I'm trying to tell you is that despite it doesn't look to be weak, like if you look at DI 79 and verbal 81, your mind might think, okay, yeah, verbal is better, like 2 points better. In fact, for verbal to reach equivalent to DI, possibly there is a 3 or 4 point gap, depending on exactly where you are looking at, which point you're looking at. There are places where the verbal score in terms of percentile, it could be like 6-7 points away from the same percentile score for a DI section. So in GMAT, especially the GMAT Focus Edition, you cannot just look at the scores. Like if you look at the scores for Quant, Verbal, and DI, the 85 raw score that is there, if you notice over here in the chart, 85 raw score is equivalent to 94 percentile in verbal, 98 percentile in DI, and only 88 percentile in quant. Now, can you guys tell me why is this important? Some of you might be thinking, yeah, it is. It is how this is. You're right, Piyush. But why does this matter? Why does this even matter? Can anyone, if you tell me that, why does this even matter? Because please understand, if you do not realize this difference and you are looking at the raw score, like, and you are thinking about, okay, I'm already at a 80 in quant, but I'm at a 79 in, let's say 82 in quant, and I'm at 79 in DI. I'm very weak in DI. In reality, in DI and quant, your scores are same. You are at the same percentile level. You're not weak in DI. You need to put an equal amount of effort on quant, or sorry, more effort on quant possibly. So if you don't understand what the scores really mean, you will never be able to understand which area do you need to focus on. And when you don't understand which area you focus on, you will focus on the wrong areas more, and you'll not get the result because it's just more difficult to progress over there. Especially DI. DI is a section where the percentiles are the lowest, and I'll just come to that. So what I'm trying to say is, it is important as a new test taker or someone who is starting their preparation, you need to set the right sectional targets, because if you don't understand, you don't set the right sectional targets, you'll not be able to estimate your effort needed in each section. So what will happen is, possibly in one section you'll underestimate your effort, that okay, yeah, I'm already at a very good score in quant, I don't need to put in so much effort, and you will end up scoring poorly because of that. And in another section you will overestimate the effort. Basically, you're already good at it, you're not realizing that you're good at it, and you're overestimating the effort, and you're over preparing for it. In the end, you don't get to see the result. So it is very important for a person who is just starting a preparation also for GMAT, or some of you who are doing it for 10 days, 15 days, that you understand what your right sectional target should be. So for example, if you go with the strategy of basically having equal scores, so if you target 85, 85, 85 in DI and verbal and quant, you'll get to a 705 in DI as a GMAT overall. But the better strategy is the equal percentile strategy. So if you go with that strategy, to achieve a 705 on GMAT, you need to target 83 in data insights, 85 in verbal, and 87 in quant. So in quant, the scope for higher score is much more, basically, because in quant, the same score, which basically in DI 83 relates to a 95th percentile, in quant, the 94 percentile, the same percentile basically, is equivalent to an 87 score. I always tell my students, whoever comes to me for studying and help with GMAT, I always tell them that if you are really looking at an M7 MBA, if you're looking at the top tier MBAs, whether it is M7 in US or INSEAD in Europe or ISB in India, if you're looking at really top schools and you want to get scholarships also, you need a high score. But how do you get a high score? One very important aspect for that is quant. You need to perfect quant. And why do I say so? See, in data insights, if you're already at 82 and you want to move to a 90, again, I'm not asking you to move to a 90. I'm just helping you understand how much effort it takes. The percentile jump that happens in this range is 7 percentile only. That means it is very, 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 very difficult in DI to get even a single point jump in the score. And your overall score shoots up because of the jump in the individual scores, the jump in these scores. So basically, if your score jumps up by 3 points here, the overall score jumps up by 20 points in the GMAT. So if increasing the score in DI is difficult percentile wise, it simply translates to that effort over here gives you less return on investment. On the other hand, if you look at quant, if you are at 82 in quant and you move to a 90 in quant, there is a 25 percentile jump that happens. What that simply means is it is much more easier to actually improve your score in quant if you're at 82 in quant than 82 in DI. So it's better to target a perfect score in quant. In fact, there are so many students of mine who have worked with me just in the last 3-4 months who have reached to a quant 90 from 80, 79, 80 kind of a score, non-engineers I'm talking about. They've also reached there, and by virtue of it, they have been able to score a 695, 705 on the GMAT focus just because of that jump in quant. A lot of people don't understand this. They think, okay, you know what, quant is just an engineer's game. It is not. Like, you can actually jump your score really fast in quant by actually focusing on very important elements. And with the GMAT focus, they have actually reduced the like the weightage of like algebra and number properties. It's more word problems driven. It's more logic driven questions. So if you really want to do well in GMAT, quant should play a very important role. And I'm telling you all of this because it will help you understand how to create an action plan. Okay, so I'll talk about that. But in case you want to check out a story of a student who just recently scored a very high percentile in quant and by virtue of it got to a 695 on the GMAT, I've just given the link in the chat here. You can go ahead, check this out. You'll learn a lot about different things, and we keep doing a lot of stories of students who are non-engineers also. In fact, you'll see an interview of Aditi, who was a non-engineer who could get to 88 in quant and get to a very high score of 695 on the GMAT because of that. So yeah, so a lot of final score depends on heavily on quant performance, at least in the GMAT focus edition, I would say. So all these things are very important. Now, how should your action plan look like? Let's understand that. So if you're an average student on GMAT, think about your action plan for GMAT to be divided in 3 phases. First phase is your learning phase. Learning phase basically means that you are starting from scratch. You're building every concept, not just basic concepts, every concept, intermediate, advanced concept, and you're also learning a process, the right methodology to apply those concepts on GMAT style questions. And if you do this, this should get you to anywhere between 605 to 645, and it should take about 200 to 250 hours of effort. And again, I'm talking about an average student. Obviously, students who are above average will require maybe around 180 to 200 hours, or maybe 150 to 200 hours. People who are excellent, like very good students, they can get there in 100 hours also. But average student will take about 200 to 250 hours of effort to get to this 645 score range in the learning phase. Now, once the learning phase ends, you need to go into the second stage of your prep, which is fine-tuning phase, which will give you a bump of 40 points in your score and requires about 50 to 100 hours of effort, depending on how well have you done the learning phase. If you have done the learning phase very well, it will only take 50 hours in this phase. If you have not done the learning phase well, this might take you up to 100 hours. Now, what is this phase? So fine-tuning basically means that you have worked on all the areas. Now you are working on basically improving on your weak areas. So it's very focused work that you do in this phase. Okay, and I'm going to talk about all the phases in depth. Okay, I'm not just going to tell you that line item wise that okay, these are the line items that you have to fill. I'm going to go deeper into it. Just a broad overview I'm giving right now. And then the final phase is your mock phase, where you get to a 750. About 30 to 50 hours of effort is needed here. Now, this is also something you need to understand. A lot of people go with the philosophy that I need to take a lot of mocks from the very beginning. Every week I should be taking a mock test. That's not the right approach at all. In fact, that could be counterproductive, because if you take mocks too prematurely, you start timing yourself before you have actually learned or mastered the strategies. It is I won't say irreversible to it. So it is something which leads to damage, which is very difficult to reverse. It's not impossible to reverse, but it takes a lot of time to get back. So don't take mocks in the beginning. Always consult with a mentor or a strategy guide to understand when you should be taking mocks. We generally recommend taking it to the last phase, or fine-tuning phase also. You can take one mock, like basically, but full-fledged mock should be like full-fledged focus on mock should be happening in the last stage, third stage. So let's focus on the learning phase first. Okay. So basically, around 20 hours per week, if you are giving above average student, your 3 months action plan can be sufficient for you to get done with the GMAT. And again, for different students, people who are, let's say, average, they will require slightly more. People who are above average, they require 3 months. People who are, let's say, better than above average, excellent students, they might get there in 2 months. So everyone has a different, basically, approach. So I'll just give an action plan for a 3-month. You see a lot here right now. Week 1 to week 9 is your learning phase. Week 9 to week 12, part of it mostly is your fine-tuning phase, and last 1.5 weeks is your mock phase. But yeah, we'll fill all the cells. Don't worry, I'm not gonna keep them blank. We'll fill all the cells as well. I'll give you an action plan for that. But let's understand, how do you get started, basically. Okay. So I'll just take up a few questions from the chat. What is a mock example test? Mock is basically a full-length test, Fabian. It just replicates your actual test, replica of actual test, basically. It's just a proper full-length test. You are just 15 minutes late, so you can obviously watch the previous part, because there's some interesting fact that I shared in that. But yes, not too late. So to get started, now this is something which a lot of people ignore. Like for them, like when they get started with the GMAT, especially I'm talking about working professionals. Now, how many of you are working professionals here? If you are working professionals, just say a yes in the chat. I'll get to know that you're a working professional. But in my experience, 80 to 90% of the people who I deal with are working professionals who are preparing for the GMAT. working professionals face a different type of challenge, right? It's very difficult for them to actually set a schedule around things. Now, if you just thought of taking the GMAT and you just started preparing just like that, it generally doesn't work very well for working professionals. You need to set certain things in place. So Jitu says, I am a working professional. Aura says, I'm a working professional. But I'm sure a lot of you others are also working professionals. So feel free to say a yes there, because in my experience, 80-90% of you will be working professionals. So what is important for you is to fix a slot. Like, it's a very, very important tip. A lot of people ignore this. They're like, okay, I will like to be flexible. One day I'll study in the morning, one day I'll study in the evening. Doesn't work that way. Trust me. If you are a working professional, you need to give dedicated time for GMAT and dedicated slot. So fix a slot. It could be 8 in the morning, it could be 8 in the evening. I don't care. Like, it is important to fix a slot. Whatever slot you pick, just make sure you do it every single day on that slot. Preferably morning slots are better, but obviously it depends on every individual. I'm not a morning person. If I study in the morning, I'll not do well, so I'll possibly take an evening slot. But if you're a morning person, take a morning slot, because at least you know that in the morning you're free. In the evening you don't know when your work ends. So that's why I said preferably morning. And be consistent. Make sure you make it a habit that no matter what, you will sit and study in that slot. Even if you are not able to give 100%, you study for half an hour, 1 hour, but you study. Because if you breaks in between, it actually stops you from building that habit. And get buy-ins. This is another very, very important factor which a lot of people ignore. They just fix a slot for themselves, that they don't take buy-ins from people who matter to them. It could be your family, it could be your friends, it could be your spouse, it could be your girlfriend, boyfriend, it could be your boss. But whosoever matters to you, you need to take a buy-in from them that this slot is sacrosanct for me. This slot is for my whatever. You don't want to tell them the reason, don't tell them the reason, but make sure that no one disturbs you around this slot. And this is a very, very important part of your journey. So don't take it lightly. Get buy-ins, fix a slot if you really want to get done with the GMAT. A lot of people come to me and ask me, Piyush, can I do the GMAT in a month? Can I do the GMAT in 2 months or 3 months? Yes, you can. Again, obviously, it depends on your potential and your speed of learning. But the most important thing that matters is your consistency. You need to get buy-ins. You need to be consistent with every single day of studying. Okay. Now, there are two categories of people that I recommend differently how to start. Now, one category is people who take time to form a new habit. Another type of people are who find it fairly easy to form a new habit. So I personally belong in the second category. I find it easy to form a new habit. Some people find it difficult to form new habits, basically. So they belong to first category. Now, if you're in the first category yourself, it is important that you start with your strongest section. For the first 2 weeks, since it is difficult for you to form a new habit, it is better to start with your strongest section, because there you will feel more comfortable. So you'll ease into the process smoothly and it will make your life easy. For first 2 weeks, just start with your strongest section and focus on that. And after 2 weeks, you can start working on your weaker section also. In fact, you can give more attention to your weaker section once you feel the schedule is more under your control. So it is very important to do this. And then in the first 2 weeks also, another thing which is important is only spend 75% or 80% of available time. So let's say, for example, you have 2 hours to study. So in the first 2 weeks, don't study for the entire 2 hours, study for 1.5 hours approximately, because you don't want to burn yourself out. If you burn yourself out, you'll not enjoy the process. So have some additional time remaining, and after 2 weeks you can go full on, like overall. And after 2 weeks, if you're studying for more than 20 hours, you study both quant and verbal at the same time. Now you hear me saying quant and verbal. The reason I'm talking about quant and verbal first is because data insights is something which is a combination of quant and verbal. So if you add these two skills, you get data insights. That's the idea. So data insights has no new concept. They has new question types, but concepts are same which are taught in quant and verbal. So if you're not doing quant and verbal first and you're doing data insights before them, you will not be actually optimizing your study time. You'll actually waste a lot of time, because quant and verbal skills directly translate into DI. So what we always recommend at GMATWhiz is that you should first focus on quant and verbal skills and then go for data insights after that. That is a very, very important part of your preparation. Now, if you are someone who belongs to the second category, which I talked about, fairly easy to form a new habit, then how should you start? So then you can start with your weakest section. Like, for example, in my case, as I said, I am someone who finds it easy to form a new habit. So I started with my weakest section. And you can start directly with 100% of time available from day one, because it's easier for you to generally form a new habit. Now, what should be your sequence of studying? So Once you have started, once you have taken the buy-in, everything is in place, you need to understand how to start each area. So in GMAT, think about like this, that in verbal, there are three skills that are tested on the GMAT. Comprehension skills, you need to understand each and every sentence really well. Analytical reasoning, you need to connect two sentences together, understand what is written between the lines, infer from it in simple terms, and then focus on main idea, main point. You need to understand entire context, what is the main idea that is being tested. Now, if you look at the different sections of verbal, critical reasoning is something that tests you on the first two skills, basically. Okay. So the first two skills are comprehension and analytical reasoning. They are both tested in critical reasoning, and reading comprehension tests you on all the three things, basically. So it tests you on all the three skills. So ideally, you should start with critical reasoning first and then move on to reading comprehension. Understood. So that is the sequence that you should start with in verbal. Don't do RC first and then CR later, or both of them parallelly. Okay. I have a question from Nave. Nave says, what are those 3 hours? I mean, I study for 7, 8 hours a day, mostly learning new concepts with solving problems and trying to crack the logic behind each question. I mean, how do you measure quality? So Nave, I'm going to come to that also. Don't worry. Like, idea is that you need to approach every concept in a systematic fashion. And I'm going to come to that. Just give me like 10 minutes. We'll be reaching there as well. Don't worry. I'm setting up the base first, that how do you start everything, because I have to keep in mind everyone also who is also starting from scratch. Okay. Now, what is the sequence for verbal? Sorry, quant. So in quant, you need to order topics in the dependency order. Dependency order basically means which topics are dependent on which other topics. So for example, when you do quants, sorry, prime numbers, you need to know exponents before prime numbers because they are tested in prime numbers. You need to also understand linear equations. Sometimes they are tested. You need to also basically know basics of quant number systems, and you need to also know even odd. So those concepts should come before you go to primes. So this order, you can take a screenshot of the slide if you want to, is something which we have created based on the dependencies of different topics amongst each other. And there's a color coding also done because number properties topics are in green, algebra topics are in blue, and word problem topics are in red. And the basic topics, we call the first 12 topics as basic topics, and the last 4 topics are advanced topics. The other topics are intermediate topics. So this categorization I'm doing here, and this is same thing we have done on our platform in GMATWhiz, so that we can map it to a study plan also. Like how should you plan your studies around them? Okay. So let's talk about the 3-month action plan. Let's plan all these things that we talked about, the verbal and the quant things, and also the DI things in the study plan. So broad level, week one, let's say for example, you're studying 20 hours in a week. So 10 hours you should give to complex sentences, understanding how to break complex sentences and CR inference, and first part of quant basics. Second week, 1/2 CR assumption and strengthen, 1/2 quant basics. Third week, you go to CR weekend plus evaluate, and quant intermediate should start by now. Fourth week and so on. You can see I've written over everything over here. So basically the idea is by the end of 8th week, which is what you see on your screen right now, this is basically the 8th week, you would have done everything in quant, verbal, and DI that is required. And again, this action plan is for an above average student, as I've already told you, who is equally good in all three areas. Now, we never believe in a one size fits all approach at GMATWhiz. We always do customized study plan for every student. So obviously, if you're weaker in verbal, you need to give more effort to verbal. If you're stronger in quant, stronger in verbal, weaker in quant, you need to give more effort to quant. Same goes for data insights, by the way. So idea is that if a student is equally good in all three areas, this is how they should plan their studies. Now, as you can see here, we are giving a lot more importance to verbal and quant. Like these are entirely verbal related things. These are entirely quant related things, and these things are related to data insights that you team tick marks. The reason for that is when you work on quant and verbal in depth, data insights to a great extent is taken care of, because as I said, there is no new concept that is tested in data insights. It's just question types like data sufficiency, two-part analysis, tables, graphs, and MSR, multi-source reasoning basically. So you just need to know how the process for those questions work, because concepts you've already learned in verbal and quant. So this is how you should distribute your time, and from week 9 onwards you need to start working on your weak areas also. So the 1/2 of week 9 you can do verbal and quant weak areas, and then you need to take weak areas for like in the next 10 week and 11 week also. Half of the time should go to weak areas, half of the time should go for official practice sectional tests. So you need to take sectional tests at this stage and then start moving towards mocks later on in week 12 and week 13. So that's the broad idea as to how you should go about the study plan if you are, as I said, above average student, you are giving about 20 hours a week, and you are equally good in all sections. So these are three important things you have to keep in mind. So this is a very good 3-week, 3-month action plan that you can go for. So what is very important in this action plan is that you need to have proper weekly goals, right? In the action plan also, I gave you the goals, what you need to do in a short way. But if you want to get a very even more detailed action plan as to how you should go about it, which is slightly more customized, I'll give you a link to register for a free trial of GMATWhiz, which will allow you to kind of create a free account. You don't have to kind of like pay anything for that, and that will give you a very good idea as to how your action plan should look like. So just give me 1 second, guys. I'm just gonna get the link here. So if you want to create a free study plan, which is slightly more personalized in nature, you can use this link and create it. So this will give you, if you go to the calendar view or the study plan tab, course tab, you will be able to see how your activity should look like for every single week, which concepts, which topics you should learn within each topic. Okay, so you can use this link and create a free trial account and get the action plan also. But what is important is you need to have every week action plan in place. Now, coming to the question that I was being asked basically by Naved, how do you learn each topic, right? How do you spend those hours that you're studying? So there are 3 learning stages for every topic. First stage is concept building. Second stage is method building. And third stage is practice. Okay, now most of the people who prepare for the GMAT, they focus on concept stage and practice stage, but they miss the second stage, which is the method. They directly jump from concept to practice without learning the method, and that's why many people falter, because they don't understand the right method, they don't learn the right method, and then they keep making the same mistakes over and over again. So very important that you learn this in 3 stages. Let me go in detail on these 3 stages. So learning concepts. Learning concepts basically means like different formulas, different rules that are there. Like for example, I've shown you a slide for some concepts of prime numbers, that how to prime factorize, how to find total number of factors, how to find number of even factors or odd factors, what are the basic rules of divisibility of 2, 3, 5, 6. Again, you need to understand those concepts first. This is the step which most of the people do. So that is step 1. But step 2 is very, very critical. What we need to understand is concepts are not enough, and just practice after concepts is not enough, because this concepts will get you to 645 score, just maximum that, even if you perfect it. There are some other skills that you also need to develop in order to get to 705 plus. Like you need to be very aware in the test. You need to understand in the test when the test creator is trying to trap you. There are trap questions which are there, which will trap you into thinking something else if you don't strategize properly. So strategizing is also important, that you might know 2 different methods of solving the question. Which one should I use? Or you should know 2 different methods in many cases, so that you can use different methods depending on different situations. So that's what is called situational wisdom also. Relating to real scenarios, meticulous reading, there are a lot of unique techniques which are important. So step 2 after learning concepts is all about learning methods, and not just any methods. You need to learn smart methods. Now, why is this important? Please understand, this is a very critical, in fact, this is the most critical part of your preparation. You need to learn smart methods. Why is this important? See, if you look at even the best scorers in GMAT, like if you look at quant scorers, high quant scorers, if you look at this scorecard, for example, quant 87 is a great score, and the student has only made 1 error. Now, what you see here is that this student has also taken very high time on 2 questions at least. But still, he was able to do well. He was able to complete the test well, because he was able to do so many questions under 1.5 minutes. Okay, and it's not just for quant. I'm just doing for quant and DI here. But you can see here also, the student has an 85 in DI, which is a very, very high score, a 97, 98 percentile score. And you can see, right, the time taken on some of the questions is very high. Over here is very high, over here is very high. But again, many of the questions were done in 1.5 minutes also, okay, 2 minutes also. So what you need to understand is that some questions will take you extra time, and you can only compensate for that extra time by learning smart methods, which will allow you to solve many questions faster. And that is something which a lot of people ignore. They just learn very mathematical approaches, longer equation-based methods. They don't learn logical methods of doing quant and DI, especially quant and DI, and even verbal for that matter. Like you need to be very logical about understanding the question stem, so that you invest time upfront, but then you reap the rewards later. You don't need to spend so much time on the answer choice elimination, basically. So these are strategies that we strongly believe in at GMATWhiz, and we try to teach every student of GMATWhiz that you should focus on learning smarter methods, not just textbook style old methods which don't get you to the result faster. So to help people learn these methods, we have come up with this idea of concept boosters. So what we do as a part of our modules is that we give you a concept booster quiz after video lessons on concepts for every topic, where you get to solve one question. Okay. And after each question, you will get to see the solution of the question so that you can analyze the solution and try to see in the solution whether your method was same as the solution or not. So if your method was the same, great job. If it is not the same, then you can understand exactly what you did differently. So you can understand that, okay, till this point, I was doing everything right. But in this case, I inferred this thing in certain manner, but it was supposed to be inferred in a slightly different fashion. So if I do it this way, then I can actually improve. So what happens is, because of you solving just one question at a time, it is very fresh in your mind how you did it. You're able to understand how you should have ideally solved it, and then you're able to relate to it and apply that learning on the next question iteratively. And what we do in this concept booster files is we also handpick each question to cover a different aspect. So if in GMAT, let's say you're doing the concept of prime numbers. Prime numbers is tested in 10 different ways. You will find at least one question of all those 10 different ways in the concept booster, which will ensure that you learn the right method for everything. So Naved, out of those 3 hours that you're spending, for example, on studying, first step is to learn the concepts, obviously, that you're doing. Second step is to make sure you go through each and different type of question and understand how do you approach it systematically at that stage. Like, what is the right method? So learn the right methods for every question type. Like for CR, pre-thinking is something which we strongly believe works really, really well, especially for non-native speakers. It works wonders for them. Uh, RC, involved and evolved reading. Data sufficiency, drawing inferences. Problem solving, like quant questions, we have a 3-step method that we recommend. IR basically is all other questions except data sufficiency in DI. So it is very important to read data efficiently in data insights. Like you need to infer. A lot of people make this mistake that they rush through the question stem in the data insights question, and I can't highlight that more. They make a blunder out of, they do blunders out of. They think that they need to do all 20 questions in DI. You need to do 20 questions, but the first 15 16 questions is all that matters, and I've done a lot of videos on that showing data that do I say so. So you cannot read data fast. You need to read data efficiently. I'm not asking you to read it slow either. It's important that you need to do it properly, understand and systematically learn it. Okay, so learn the right method. That holds, like, that's very, very important for you to do well on the GMAT. So I have a question from Jitu. I'll just take it up. Sir, I got a score of 715 in GMAT Club mock test, but I'm getting very low score in CR and RC difficult questions. I'm fairly confident in Quant and DI except MSR. This messes up my section sometimes. Okay. So Jitu, again, yours is a very specific question as to how you can do it in 2 months. But see, if your CR and RC difficult questions is going wrong, there's a high chance of you not having the right process for CR and RC. So try learning rethinking, try learning involved and evolved reading. That will help you a lot, basically, because once you develop those right processes, even hard questions become straightforward for you. But if you're, like, the rule of thumb is that if hard questions is where you are getting stuck in last 2 choices in verbal, your process is definitely not the best for solving those questions. So next 2 months, if you really want to use it, in short, I'll just tell you, next 15 to 20 days, you need to work on improving these processes. And we have done a lot of webinars on these as well. And then we have a course in which we cover all these strategies as well in depth. You can obviously look at that. But I would say first, next 15 to 20 days, you focus on fine tuning your strategies for CR and RC. Obviously, you need to keep revising the other areas also, but make sure that in the next 15 20 days you improve your processes. Don't just do more and more practice questions, because if you keep doing more and more practice questions without improving on your process, you will just be like stuck to the same process. You'll get better at doing the wrong thing, so that doesn't take you forward. So you might make a mistake. 715 great score on GMAT Club mock test because they're generally more difficult, but you can definitely do much more if you improve your CR and RC. Okay, hope that helps. And in case anyone of you wants to understand how GMATWhiz can help you with your preparation, feel free to schedule a call on our calendar, on my calendar. This is the link for that. So if you want to understand how we can help you get to your dream score on GMAT, like we have helped so many other students, feel free to reach out to us using this link. Okay, guys, what is considered an average score on GMAT? Now, that is a very subjective question, I would say. If I go by the pure definition of average score, somewhere around early 500s would be an average score on GMAT, basically. Okay. But yeah, a 645 plus is a good score for most people. If you are from an overrepresented pool, like especially like from Asian countries, for you a good score will be 675 plus, basically. So it depends a lot on the geography you are in, which colleges are you targeting. Basically, that's how it works. Okay, so let's move ahead. So yeah, so basically the same thing I was telling you about the process. So it is important to validate the method. So what you need to do is, let's say for example, you solve the CR question. Okay, this is a CR question. It has 4 sentences and then option choices. After you solve it, you see something like this in the solution where the first sentence is explained. So instead of going to the answer and seeing, okay, what is the right answer, look at this and ask yourself that when I read the first sentence, did I infer it in this fashion? Did I analyze it in this fashion? Then when I read the second sentence, did I analyze it in this fashion or not? When I read the third sentence, did I analyze it in this fashion? So if you analyze each and every part of the process systematically, you will figure out exactly where you're going wrong. And that pinpointed improvement in the process will actually help you improve your score. That is what you need to understand. Now, after you have learned the process, the next step is to practice question and identify gaps. So you take a topic-wise quiz. Let's say you have done prime numbers. You have learned the process for prime numbers. Now you take a complete quiz. Take a timed quiz if you want to. Try to find out your strengths and weaknesses. If you have weaknesses, then focus on your weak areas. Like do more questions, identify why you're making the mistakes. Don't let issues pile up. Because if you let issues pile up, if let's say you're weak at prime numbers and you continue moving forward without working on it, then you will actually see like your time taken is much more than required. You will end up reworking on a lot of things. So it's important to fix it right away as far as possible, at least to a level where you are getting all easy and medium questions right, if not hard ones. So get to that level and then move to the next topic. Unless like a topic is very difficult for you, no matter how much effort you're putting in, you're not able to get through even medium questions. That's a different issue. But ideally, your goal should be to at least get to easy and medium question, very high accuracy, very close to 100% if possible. So do that right away and then move to the next topic. Now, with the proper 3-step approach that I told you, concept plus methods plus practice, you will be able to cover your learning phase very well. And then again, GMATWhiz has a complete study plan for it. But for the fine-tuning phase, it is very important that you work with a mentor, because see, fine-tuning is a very, very focused process, right? You need to give attention to areas where you're weak at. So in the fine-tuning phase, what you should do is you need to look at multiple things, like how much or is your target score, what your strengths and weaknesses are right now, what are the methods being used. So we generally, when we work with students, even in our online course, we provide them with a mentor whom they can reach out every 10 to 15 days for a 15-20 minute discussion around their progress. So in the mentorship calls, the mentor actually look at all these factors and then they advise you as to what you should be focusing on your fine-tuning stage. Again, it's not like you can only connect with your mentor in the fine-tuning stage. You can connect with them even earlier in the learning phase also. In fact, you should connect with them in the learning phase also. But idea is that if you connect with them during this time, it's even more important because they can help you understand where you should focus your energy. But I'll give you a brief idea as to how you should work. So ideally, in the fine-tuning phase, 60 to 70% of your effort should be fully focused on your weak areas. Don't choose just random practice that, okay, you know what, I open the official guide and just do every question. Yeah, that is important. I'm not saying it's not important. But 60-70% time should be focused on your weak areas. So identify what your weak areas are, give 60-70% time to that so that you can improve on them. And remaining time should be given to general practice and revision, basically. So you can take sectional tests in that time, you can do general practice in that time. I recommend sectional tests generally in that time in the fine-tuning phase. So idea to identify your weak areas should be that if you are scoring less than 60%, then that is a weak area, but it is a concept related area, weak area. If you're scoring between 60 and 85%, then you have application related problems, not concept related problems. So if you have concept related problems, just give me 1 second, guys. I'll just sip some water. Sorry. So if you have concept related problems, what you should first do is you should learn the concepts and formulas again, go through the video lectures or wherever, and then learn how to solve questions and do about 15 to 20 questions. That should be sufficient. On the other hand, if you have application gaps, what you should do is skip the concept learning part that is not required. Rather, focus on learning how to solve questions methodically. And remember, I showed you an example how you can validate your process. So look at the solutions in depth, see in every step what is that you did, what is that should have been done. Look at the process, understand what's the difference between your method and the right method, and then do 10 to 15 questions, ideally 1 question at a time, focusing a lot more on the process part of it. Because if you are at a 60% level already or more, but not at a 85% plus level, the problem is with the process. Okay. So that's what you need to do. Now, important question, when to time oneself? Now, a lot of people make this mistake that they time themselves in learning phase. You should never time yourself in learning phase. In the learning phase, you should focus on learning the right method. Don't worry about timing as much. Again, even if you're taking a timed quiz, don't worry about time is what I mean to say. Then in the fine tuning phase, you should focus on timing. See, in our GMATWhiz module also, in the learning phase, we have timed quizzes. But we don't ask our students to worry about timing. In most of the quizzes, we count the time upward so that you can keep track of time. But focus on timing should come only in the fine tuning stage. Because if you focus on timing when you're learning the method, you'll not be able to learn the method. And it's true for every skill that you learn in your life, whether it is driving for the first time or singing, dancing, whatever. You need to learn the method first. Okay. I have a question from Namma. He says, would you recommend writing down points while solving RC? Initially, yes, it makes sense, but not like writing down detail, writing down important inferences. Like you can do that, but as you move forward, you should phase it down, control it, reduce the number of items you need to write. And we say this paragraph summary approach, so you can summarize each para in like 2-3 words. That's it. Eventually, we'll get to that stage. Initially, you might need to do a little more work, but don't start writing everything down or detail down, or like it should be inferences that you should write down. It helps you to just etch it better in your mind. Okay. Now, once you have worked on the weak areas, as I said, sectional tests very, very important. So you should optimize weak areas and then take sectional tests that will help you to improve your timing as well. Okay. So that is important. Now, this part is taken care of, second phase, which is fine tuning. You work with GMATWhiz mentors, you'll understand where to work on, what to do. They'll guide you pinpointed way, what is to be done. And then comes the mock stage. Now, what should your mock strategy be? So first of all, you need to learn about timing strategies for GMAT, right? A lot of people prematurely learn about them. Important to learn it at the right point of time. So learn about the timing strategies for GMAT, and it will help you a lot. I've done a lot of videos on that. I'll just give you one of the links of the videos, which will help you understand the test taking strategy part. But again, as I said, this is not something which is important at this stage. You can come and back to this and watch it later as well. But learn about the different test taking strategies. How should you position yourself? How should you pace yourself during the test? A lot of people don't understand that, pace themselves long and end up getting a lower score. So pace yourself right and do one mock every 3-4 days. Make sure you analyze each mock. I strongly tell my students to focus on analysis. Like if you're spending 3 hours in a mock test, taking the mock test, you should be spending 3 hours after the mock analyzing the mock. I used to do that for every single mock as a student. And I always recommend all of you to do that. Please make sure you don't take mock analysis lightly. Most of the people after the mock, they only look at the score. If they get a high score, they are happy. If they get a low score, they get demotivated. You should not just stay there. You need to understand what worked in your favor, what did not work in your favor. Even if you did very well, you need to still analyze what did not work in your favor. Because if those things don't work in the favor in the real test, you can score poor. And if you are doing poorly also, but you still analyze what worked in your favor and what did not work in your favor, you will be able to improve. So don't just look at the score. Make sure you do thorough analysis of the mock. Okay. And if you are 50 to 60 points away from your target score, let's say your target score is 695 and you score less than 635, then don't take another mock after 3-4 days. There's no point in taking that. Rather work on fine tuning. First work on your weak areas, improve on them, and then start taking the mocks again. Okay. So that's about it. I'm just recapping the 3 months action plan in front of you. This is how you should plan your preparation. Now, again, this is an action plan for people who are above average and they are generally equally good in all 3 areas. Okay. So that's all from my side, guys. I open it up the test, like the session for an open-ended Q&A. You can obviously ask any questions now that you have in your mind. I'm more than happy to take them up for you. If you want to reach out to me personally, you can always text me on WhatsApp as well. And my email ID is also mentioned over here. Otherwise, we have a broader team who looks at our emails. So you can send a mail on support@gmatwiz.com also. And in case you want to schedule a time on my calendar to speak to me and understand how we can help you with your GMAT prep, I'm just going to pass on the link in the chat here. It's also there in the comments, basically. Okay, so you can just go ahead and ask any questions that you might have. More than happy to take that up. Any strategy for reading RC passages would be really helpful. So yeah, so we have conducted a lot of different sessions on reading RC passages. Please check them out on our YouTube channel. Also, you can go to GMATWhiz and even GMAT Club. We have done some webinars on them. Otherwise, you can just check out our free trial. Like there are some content on that. But the idea is in reading RC passages, you need to focus on involving yourself in your reading, ensuring that you're not skimming through the information, but understanding the main idea behind why the author is writing. So don't just focus on how what is written, focus on why it is written. If you focus on that, things become much easier for you to manage. Okay. Thank you so much, Aura. If you have anyone else has any other questions. All right, guys, I hope you guys found the session really helpful. So if you did find it helpful, do give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends who are preparing for the GMAT. And yes, on at GMATWhiz, we always try to bring you great like sessions like this to give you the best strategies possible. I have a couple of questions. I'll just take them up and then move forward. Are only mocks available on GMATWhiz? Unfortunately, no. Sir, I have been application and practice gap. Most concepts are mostly covered. How to plan this for the 30-day timeline. So again, Sripati, like it's important, as I said today also, that if you have application and practice gaps, you need to improve the methods first. Okay, so work on the methods, look at the solutions, identify what is that you're doing wrong with every single question, and that's when you will be able to focus on what you need to work on. Is it okay if I want to prepare for Quant only for a few weeks? I've not started other sections. Yes, it's okay. I even said, right, if you are sometimes it makes sense to start with certain sections and prepare for only those. It gives you the momentum and then you can start working on the others. So now it's all good. Don't worry about it. Okay. All the best, guys. So thank you so much for being here. I hope you loved the session, liked the session a lot. And I'll keep coming back once in a while, share my strategies with you, whatever I get to learn about the test more and more. And all the best to you guys. Do well on the GMAT and make me proud. Thank you so much for being here today.